Hi, it's Tootie Tagerly coming to you a couple minutes late from the west coast of the United States, from San Francisco. And today we're talking about moving from observing to participating. As I said, I'm Tootie Tagerly. Reason why I'm talking about this is that many of my clients talk to me about personal branding, whether these are leaders who work at large companies right now and eventually want to build up more of a brand for themselves. A brand is a series of a body of knowledge, what they're known for, that they can take with them from company to company. Or if you are a co founder or CEO working at a startup, it can be really important to have a sense of this is my company's brand and this is my brand. And likely there's some overlap, but it's not 100%. Because again, your brand stays with you throughout your length and longevity of your career. One of the tips that I want to share, because the steward sale for Burning Man is open right now, and I'm thinking about it and having the opportunity to get my tickets for Burning Man this year, is a Burning Man philosophy of no observers, only participants. Burning Man is an art festival out in the desert in near Reno, near Gerlach in the Black Rock Desert. And it's an art festival, it's a music festival, it's a place of creativity where every person who comes is asked to participate. It can be big participation, like creating of these grand art projects, these huge structures where people have to submit their applications and spend the year building the art projects. Or it can be as small as gifting, walking around with little gifts, preferably handmade, preferably crafted in some way that you hand out to the people around you. That's the ethos of participation. That's the ethos of serving. That's the ethos of giving back. And what I love is that it's innately combined and intertwined with creativity, with being a maker, with giving someone something out of love. And as a gift, it can also be something of service. I'll often give tarot readings out on the playa, just a little piece of my energy to someone else. All right, but let's move back to corporate, well, less corporate, but the professional world and our notion of personal branding, which is what am I known for? And one of the keys to start being known for things is to stop observing, to stop just passively consuming social media feeds and news stories and start participating. And it can be big, it can be small. The first thing to start thinking about is how can I serve? How is it that I can help other people around me? And when I talk about being a creator, being a maker, being a participant, many people will tell me, oh, no, that's not me. I'm not someone who's going to go out and brag and talk about all the work I do. No, I'm a quiet person. I'm an introvert. I'm not a braggart. Or someone might say, well, I don't know what I have to say. If this is you, let's start small with the notion of how can I serve? And if we start small with the notion of how can I serve, it can be one to one. You can help someone else, one person. It doesn't have to be a huge broadcast out all around. Um, so I'll tell a story. This past weekend, I was at the San Francisco Writers Conference. It was the second time I've been. The first time was last summer. And the first time I went as a complete noob. I've never been at a writers conference. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what agents did, what publishers did. I had self-published my first book, Make Space to Lead, and now my second book is with an agent who is pitching it to different publications, different publishing houses. But I had no idea about what any of this was. But I knew that when I was going to go to my second SF Writers Conference, I wanted to be a presenter. I wanted to share any wisdom or knowledge that I have because, well, while I was a noob in the writing scene, I had a whole nother career as a tech leader in design. I know business, I know how to do sales and marketing, and I wanted to serve from that perspective. I ended up pitching and to really give a talk about making an audiobook. I had recorded my own audiobook for Make Space to Lead, and I found it to be a wonderful process, both in getting coached and directed for how to vary my voice to make it sound a little bit more interesting and lively and less boring, and also how to track my own cadences, how to tell a story, how to move into the storyteller mode. So I approached the people who had produced my audiobook and said, "Hey, let's do a talk together. Let's talk about this both from the producer perspective and the participant perspective, the client perspective, and just use it also to do an informal Q&A to share the information with other authors who might be interested in moving into audiobooks." One thing that I found, and this is a side note, super surprising because I pulled my own sales data. And if we take out corporate buys where I'll do speaking engagements and ask people to buy books as part of the speaking engagement, if we remove that, which are always physical books, 57% of my direct to consumer sales have been with audiobooks. My God, what an amazing stat, right? To really talk about just the benefits to that medium. And I'm just looking up the stats real quick to make sure that I have them. So, actually, I lied. It was 53%. Having a hard time remembering numbers. 53% of my sales were for audiobooks, 27% was from a physical book, and then 20% from Kindle. So I asked myself the question, how can I serve? And then when I showed up at my next writers conference, I wanted to share that type of information. I also held office hours. They branded me as a business coach and information about audiobooks. So I talked to a lot of people about, well, as an author, how do you build your platform? How do you market yourself? How do you start talking about things on social media? So, because we're talking about moving from observing to participating, the first thing is to look at your skill set. Look at what you know, look at what you've done. And I believe you've done a lot because most people have. I typically work with a lot of high achievers. And how do you start serving others? The second part is that even if you're like, well, I'm not a high achiever, I don't make audiobooks, I don't need to know how to do all of that. We can start a lot smaller with a small first step of share your story. You might be in your first job out of college. You might not think you know anything in your first job, but guess what? You can go back to your university. You can go back to your high school and you can share your story of how you've gotten from there to here to here. You can talk about what it was like to make your first resume. You can talk about your process of interviewing. You can talk about what it was like to start your job in your first 90 days. Whatever context that you're in right now, I promise you, your story is really interesting. And I know because I talk to a lot of people, and man, everyone has a really interesting story. And if you're scared, if you're afraid, that's pretty normal. That's pretty natural. Yeah, you might, it's much more comfortable to be an observer, but it's going to help you and your brand and your career and your leadership to start sharing your story. You can start really, really small with one person. You could start with mentoring someone. You could start with talking to the intern. You can start with going back to your college or your high school. The third point, and where this starts to get really interesting, is that we all have multiple identities. There's us at work, there's us at home, there's us as a sailor, there's us as a painter, there's us as an avid marathoner. What gets really interesting when you're moving from observing to participating is you can look at your passions and blend and shape each of your different passions and contexts, take little pieces from one identity and put it into another identity. And that's a way for you to participate and share that is uniquely you. I'll tell a little story. It's actually kind of fun. One of my clients used to be head of design at a major fintech company. And he ended up leaving his job, I don't know, mid last year, something like that. Um, but throughout the entire time that we'd been working together, he really wanted to spend more time with music. He had played in a band in high school. He really wanted to get back into playing the piano, playing the guitar. And for him, it was an inherently creative process and project. He found that making music, composing, playing actually made him a better designer, a better leader, a better, C-suite participant, a better board presenter, all of that. So through a lot of the time that we were coaching together, yes, we were working on business objectives and OKRs and leadership and hiring and succession planning. But we were also working on, well, how do I carve out more time for music as my passion? When he left his company, he ended up creating a startup that helps other people, helps people learn how to how to play music. It's a, two-sided marketplace connecting the people who want to learn with the teachers, all that. But I thought that was brilliant. It was a way where he took different parts of his identity and led it forward into a major career goal of his, which is to be a startup co-founder. So, as we're moving from observing to participating, you don't have to quit your job and found a startup based on your passions. But think about, where can you blend different parts of your passions into your work? Maybe you move from observing to participating by doing like the smallest thing, which is in your Monday morning stand up. You share with the people around you your different areas of passions. Might be something you kind of thought wasn't work appropriate, wasn't something that you wanted everyone else to know. But I guarantee you, this is all about building your personal long term brand beyond this current job. And this is how you move from observing to participating. All right, last point. You don't have to start big. You don't have to quit your company and become a startup co founder. You don't have to publish blogs on Medium, even though I encourage it, or Substack, not Medium. What's one thing? One something really small where you can start creating, you can start participating, you can start making something right now. Is it reaching out to mentor someone? Is it starting to tweet more? Is it starting to comment on videos that you watch? Is it really sharing your thoughts in an internal Slack post, sharing an interesting article, sharing an interesting video that you saw in your internal Slack group? All of these are ways to do this. So wrapping up, build your personal brand with courtesy and inspiration from Burning Man to move from observing to participating. And you can do it by asking, how can I serve? Service mindset, service orientation first. We teach what we most need to learn. Share your story. You can start small, one-to-one, before going bigger. Blend and shape all your different passions and contexts. And then finally, start small. One little thing. That's how you start experimenting. All right, that's it. Tootie Tagerly. I will talk to you next week.